This is Fallout 4. I don't recall if I ever streamed this game before. I might have back when it was brand new, but it would have been very, very early, and I would have had no idea what I was talking about. But yeah, this is Fallout 4. This is actually a request by Director Cosmic, one of my viewers. He built up enough channel points watching me live on Twitch that he could request that I play a particular game. And I believe this is available on Game Pass. So even though I originally played this game on PC, it was so long ago, I didn't want to go back and try to dig up my old save. I didn't even know if I would find my old save in any kind of working condition. So I started a new save. I got through the tutorial, but that's all I did. So we could be able to jump in here and not go through. I mean, the tutorial is actually, it's full of interesting decisions. And so if particularly if you have Game Pass and it doesn't cost you any extra to go check this out, this game is worth checking out, partly because the intro does some clever stuff with, for instance, how you are making your own, deciding what your face looks like. They have a man and a woman who are married taking turns in the mirror as you're sort of adjusting their facial features and deciding what you look like. And you can play as one or the other. And either way, you end up as the parent of a missing child. And that's sort of the setup of the story, is that at the beginning of a nuclear war, you are on kind of an emergency basis dragged into a vault where you survive the nuclear war in like cryostasis, and you wake up and find that your spouse is killed and your child is kidnapped, and then you fall asleep again and then wake up again. And so as I understand it, I never got all the way through the main story. I'll probably talk a little bit about the way I play Bethesda games a little bit later. I never got all the way through the main story. I don't know where it's headed. I imagine my child has probably grown up and is probably in some kind of problematic situation that I'll have to get them out of. And maybe make some difficult moral choices along the way. I don't know. But we're going to rejoin this game. So I'm just level 1. Like I said, it's a brand new game at the very outset. And here I am, having just emerged from the vault. The vault is under this big elevator here. I've come out into the world, and I don't really remember anything about it. I believe that I think I came up this way originally. So I'm going to take this way to get back down. So, like I said, I've never actually played all the way through the main storyline of most Bethesda games, honestly. I'm trying to remember. Do I have any weapons? Did I pick something up already? Yes, I do have a weapon. How do I play this game? Because on your inventory tab you can favorite items. Oh, there we go. And I can say, okay, so I've already stuck it on the D-pad back when I did this. Okay, wait. How do I? There we go. Okay, now we've got a pistol. Just in case there's monsters out here, I wanted to be ready for them. I'm still getting tutorial messages. But anyway, yeah, so Bethesda makes these enormous open world games. Enormous bespoke open world games. So there are open world games out there where the sheer amount of content is created procedurally. And they've done that before. I believe that way back in the day, in like the 90s, Bethesda made a game called, I think, Daggerfall, that had an enormous, like the largest world they've ever done, I'm pretty sure, and it was a procedurally generated world. But they haven't done that since. All the worlds have been bespoke since then, I believe, and they're just full of like manually placed, clever little side quests, clever little locations, and a lot of. But they're also full of systems, and that's actually, as a systems designer, I've really been enjoying how Bethesda, each new game that they build, rather than just sort of filling it with more and more and more bespoke stories, which is expensive, but also it's got. I mean, the bang for buck is low. You spend a lot of time building a story, and then the player plays it once and never plays it again. It doesn't have interest in playing it again if it's a linear story. But if you build a system, you can spend you can spend weeks working on the system, months working on that system. Players will play it for years. And so they've been leaning more and more over time into interesting player-driven systems within their big bespoke worlds. And so, you'll still get, when you play a Bethesda game, like Fallout 4, you'll still get this a huge world that somebody's made. Like, that water tower over there, it's probably got some stuff going on down underneath it. There's a whole huge map of the, I believe it's the Boston area, a sort of an alternate reality version of the Boston area. They've built this enormous stuff. But inside it, there's also a crafting system. There's also... Oh, by the way, I forgot how to... How do I use VATS? I've forgotten how this game works. Is it one of the... That's not it. That's not it. B is bringing up my Vault Boy. Or whatever. Not Vault Boy. My Pip Boy. Pip Boy is my little personal computer. Vault Boy is a little cartoon guy. Okay, so I know I need to fight these things. I just want to make sure I know what I'm doing. Oh, by the way, so one thing I should mention before I get in here. I always alter the controls of Fallout because natively they've got jump on Y and interact on A, which to me is nuts. I'm used to playing like Grand Theft Auto style games where games that are inspired by Grand Theft Auto, like State of Decay, where Y is your interact button. And Grand Theft Auto does also the insane thing where their jump is on X, but you also don't jump a lot in the game. Most of your athletics are actually done with the A button by sprinting, and so it's fine. But like so many games that I play have A as your jump button and Y as your interact button. I just flip those two. So that's what I did. I flipped those buttons around, but was it... Okay, that's switching my character. Yeah. What buttons are left? Is it clicking? That's stealth. What button am I not thinking of? That's the menu. This is the problem with going back to an old game you never play. VATS. LB. Oh, have I just not unlocked it yet? Because I hit LB. Or no, did I just not have an enemy on screen? There we go. There we go. All right. Oh gosh, hi. Okay, so I want to shoot this one and then shoot this one and hopefully those succeed. Nope, my character doesn't have a lot of... I don't have a lot of skill yet. All right. Oh no, I've taken radiation damage. I'll be fine. No big deal. Yeah, so, sorry, like, this is me sort of really trying to get used to a game that I've played many times before, but it just takes a little bit to remember how anything works. Anyway, so as I was saying, they keep adding more and more systems into these games. Like, so for instance, Fallout 4 added this elaborate crafting system where this gun in my hand is made of a lot of different components, and I can swap out those components. So the handle could be different, the barrel could be different, I can attach things to the barrel, I can have a sight on it, and lots and lots of items, including the massive suits of power armor you can wear, can be piecemealed that way. And not only that, but you can build your own base in this game, which you can, like, obviously, it's something as bespoke looking as this, you couldn't quite build, but you can build something not too far off from this using their in-game, their tools. And one thing that I really appreciate about their crafting system is that most of the pieces that you need to build, either your base or your weapons, come from just scavenging random items. Like, for instance, there's this typewriter. Pick up that typewriter. I'm going to grab some Wonder Glue and a flip lighter. What else can I pick up around here? Is there something in here that I can pick up? Learning which things can be picked up and which can't, a lot of that comes from just exposure to the game in time. I've got enough stuff, though. So I believe, was it a workbench? Come over to a workbench. And, oh yeah, so I can scrap things. Oh, but this might not actually... So, okay, let me just show you what I can do here. So, I could modify this gun. I could change its standard receiver to be a light frame receiver, a heavy frame receiver. That doesn't change its appearance, but it does change its stats. And then, right now I've got a short barrel. I could add a long barrel, which would extend it, like that. A long light barrel. A long ported barrel. a long light ported barrel. You know, like they've all these different advantages you can get by just taking the basic gun you get at the very beginning and just adding stuff to it. So you could still be firing a gun that is effectively this same gun towards the end of the game, but because you swapped in a bunch of fancy components. Like, I've got a standard magazine right now, but I could add a large magazine, a quick eject magazine, a large quick eject magazine. This thing is really deep, and a lot of the stuff, when you want to install it, you need to have, like, say, adhesive 2, screws 9, steel 12. Or actually, wait. Oh, this is always a weird thing when you're doing UX for a game and you're handling resources and resource requirements. Is this saying I need 12 steel but I have 3? Or is this saying I need 3 steel and I have 12? Different games do different amounts of that, and there's just, I have no idea. You have to mess with it to figure it out. But I've forgotten, is it the workshop? Oh, the workshop. This is where I build structures. So yeah, as you see here, you know, I've got access to a bunch of furniture and things like, let's see here, like, yeah, structures. I can build a wood structure with floors, walls, roofs, stairs, miscellaneous, like there's just all these things that I can do. So basically, because there's a workshop here, that means that this house can be transformed into a base, and I can use this system to turn this into my own base. The thing that I was trying to show you that I'm sure I can do, but I've just forgotten how. What's transfer? Oh, I can put things in the workshop like it's a container. Oh, that's neat. The thing I want to do, though, is scrap my junk. Unless... Yeah, okay. Oh, maybe I don't scrap it. Maybe I just use it. I'm not sure. Because, like, for instance, there's a desk fan right here. And you can see that if I scrap this desk fan, I'll get 2 gears, 2 screws, and 2 steel. Which is really clever. The thing that I really like the most about all of Fallout systems, there's a lot of really good Fallout 4 systems. But one of my favorite things, and this is just a subtle thing that they decided to do, was how you search for resources. Because in most games where you search for resources, you run around in the world and you're like, I need 5 adhesive. And you're like, oh, here's some adhesive. And it's just a thing called adhesive that it always looks the same. You pick it up, you open up a box. The box says, I contain 3 more adhesive. You're like, okay, here's some adhesive, whatever. And you're just collecting the thing that you want to get, right? In this game, you find specific objects, meaningful objects in the world, things that look like they're in place. They can actually do, like, you know, environmental storytelling with these objects. By, like, say, these handcuffs, you know, so they could have handcuffs strewn around somewhere. They could have a desk fan sitting on a desk, a hubcap falling off a car, you know, a toy car sitting somewhere. You pick up all these random things, and then you break them down into their components, which you then use in crafting, which is not only a more accurate rendition of, like, what you see people doing in post-apocalyptic stories, taking things from the old world apart and putting them back together again in new and clever ways. That's part of sort of the emotional experience you're going for in a post-apocalyptic game. But also, it's just a really nice way to have one system do 2 things. Not only is it collecting a bunch of items to fit into a simple set of recipes, but it's also letting them do environmental storytelling by having these items look like they belong in the world and feel like they're at home somewhere. Because there's a version of this where they lean wholly into just having it be resources, where you're like, oh yeah, I have found, oh, this room is just full of screws and steel and gears and oil and, you know, whatever, and like screws and wood. And when you find wood, it's just always a little bundle of wood, and it's just, rooms are just full of, the world is just made out of this stuff. And you're like, I mean, it's very simple you don't have to have a lot of complicated recipes. The recipes can be very simple and straightforward. You know exactly what you're looking for at all times. You can recognize the valuable things and the unvaluable things because the list of different things you need to craft with is very small. But the world looks like it's made out of crafting materials, which is just weird. Or they have to hide them all in containers, which means they can do less with them, and there's just less potential there. On the other hand, they could have done a version of this where, in order to make the long barrel, I need to get 1 desk fan, 2 toy cars, and an antique globe in order to make the long barrel on my pistol. And that could work, but it means that you have to suddenly be aware of so many more different and weird components. The verisimilitude of it is kind of low, unless you're really creating weird stuff. The verisimilitude of it is very low, and you end up, just like, it's too complicated. You can't, like, in this game, I remember adhesive was like one of the most important things. Anywhere I could get adhesive, I wanted adhesive, because it was necessary for so many crafting recipes. In a game where everything is much more specific and bespoke throughout the crafting system, I can't build up that sense of understanding of what I'm looting, and put it to use. So anyway, so this is like the main reason when Director Cosmic said, "Hey, can you play Fallout 4?" That was the main thing I wanted to talk about in Fallout 4, was how clever this system is. That they set it up in such a way that I could, simultaneously have all the benefits of the verisimilitude, of the environmental storytelling, of this, of this sort of the accurate rendition of the post-apocalyptic vision that I had in my head from movies and books and TV. There's all of that narrative benefit of having this huge variety of different items, but I still also get all of the systemic benefit of having a simple set of very specific items that I'm looking for, so that I can combine them, to make it into a simple set of recipes and just make very straightforward things. So that's what oh, hello. I mean, it's not threatening me. I'm still going to murder it, obviously. Six legs bad, two legs good. There we go. It's meat. By the way, those of you who've been watching me play Project Zomboid, I mean, there's also a cooking station, which I love. I don't think I can make any of this stuff. Oh, can I? Wait a minute. Ooh, I can make some grilled radroach. Let's do it. Yes. Oh, there's more I can make. What else can I... I can just make... I can make more grilled radroach. Let's just make that. You don't want to eat your radroach raw, right? That's gross. But yeah, but I can look at these and be like, oh, okay. I need to look for this and this and this. Cool. The best one, though, is vegetable starch. It's adhesive. So what I always do at my base is I try to grow as much corn, moot fruit, and potato as I can, and collect purified water. And then I make just scads and scads of vegetable starch so that I can craft. So this area is fairly non-threatening. So let me look over at the chat and see what I've been missing here. So Scott Landon said, I was not expecting you to play Fallout 4. Skyrim is my favorite. So the other big thing about Fallout, to talk about with Fallout, is the fact that I played this game for lots and lots and lots and lots of hours, never completed the main storyline, never even got halfway through the main storyline. And Skyrim, similarly, I fought one dragon and then never pursued anything more than the main plot. I was actually worst with Oblivion. I never opened a single Oblivion gate, or whatever those things were called. Like, I never went in there. And in Morrowind, I never even went into the middle of the map. Like, I was just exploring Dwemer ruins, and stuff like that. Because, in Fallout 3 was actually the only Bethesda game where I actually completed the main storyline. And I think it partly might have been because they were still sort of figuring out their footing with Fallout, and they didn't fill it with as much systemic side fodder as some of the other games. And so I pursued the main plot to its completion, but that's the only Bethesda game I've ever done that with. And I don't regret it. Like, I don't feel like I missed out, because that's not why I play these games. I don't come to these games for the storyline. Now, I mean, some people don't like their stories. Some people do like their stories. I'm not going to weigh in because I don't know. I don't play them all the way through. Because that's just not why I come here. I come here to immerse myself in the world that they've made. And that's what Bethesda is really, what they're really masters of, is building a vast world that feels real, lived in. It's just, it's full of a vibe. And then and lately, more and more, they've been adding these systemic games to play. Where in Fallout 4, not only do I have a map, by the way? I do have a map. So not only do they have the crafting system and the base building system, they also, over the course of this huge map, and look at this enormous map. Like, this is the vault I started in. This is where I am now. There's some distances involved in this. And this is me with, like, no DLC either. There's, like, DLC that you can get that takes you to even more places. But this map is actually covered in settlements that you can ally with, make your own, build up, turn each of them into its own little base that you control, defend them against invaders. Like, there's just all of this stuff to do that is not the main storyline. My tendency with Bethesda games is just to play that stuff. I get into the world, I want to live here, I build my base, or in the case of, like, Skyrim, for instance, I bought my home, and then I was like, on Skyrim, I was just on a quest to get the best crafted armor in the game. And so I was just traveling all over the world trying to get all the stuff I needed and build up the skills that I needed to make my suit of armor. And when I had made my suit of armor and put it on, I was like, yeah, I won Skyrim. And I was done with Skyrim. Along the way, I had a lot of amazing, like, adventures and dungeons and, saw a lot of cool stuff. Fought one dragon. That was pretty cool. But that's what I was there to do. And in Fallout, similarly, I was just in Fallout 4 to build my cool base and get my fancy armor on. And I did that. And I felt really good about it. And I didn't need to do anything else. And so, yeah, so I play these games very differently from a lot of the other games that I play. Like, this is just, I don't know. And one of the things I think is really kind of cool about these games, though, is the fact that they've decided, and this is a difficult decision to make. Like, there's always going to be somebody on your team who is pushing for you not to make this decision. And I understand why. The decision is to try to make the game appeal to a wide variety and of different audiences. Because usually what you want to do with a game, if you want to keep it reasonably scoped, is you want to say, okay, this is the audience for the game. It's this kind of person who wants this kind of experience. And then you make only that experience for that person. And you have a bunch of neat ideas along the way, and you cut them all because none of those neat ideas are for that person. And it's a great sort of rubric to use to decide what goes into your game and what doesn't go into your game. But sometimes you get a game team that is like, no. Our whole deal is this game is bigger than that. And that's what Bethesda does. They make a game that has a big overarching story, and if that's what you come to the game for, it's really interesting to pursue all the side quests, to pursue the main arc, to make the moral decisions that you make. That can be really, really interesting. But if you're not that kind of player, and you're the kind of player who's just like, I want to creatively get in here and craft and own a bunch of things that are mine, that's also allowed, and there's plenty of room for that too. In State of Decay, we try to make the game appeal on a lot of different levels too. We haven't gone nearly as far as Bethesda has, but like that's something that we adopt too. But it's expensive and it's difficult. It makes everything we do harder because we're trying to make the game work for a lot of different kinds of players simultaneously. And so I like that about Bethesda. I love that they make games this way. And with Starfield on the horizon, like Starfield looks like it's taken the Fallout 4 model and just taken it even further. I think you can make your own starship now. And I'm just like, I kind of can't wait to sink my teeth into all the systems. I do not care what the story is. Like, Starfield's gonna have a story. I do not give a crap. I'm so sorry, anyone at Bethesda watching this, if you were working on the story. I'm gonna experience a lot of it along the way. And the fact that it's there is actually really important to establishing the vibe of the world. The fact that it's not just a big empty world. Like, this isn't Minecraft or 7 Days to Die, which is mostly just a big empty world without a lot of context. One of the reasons why it's interesting to build here is because this is a world where something's going on. That story, even though I don't see every second of it, I don't play through every beat of the story, the fact that it's there gives my gameplay some context so that I actually feel good. I feel like the base I'm building is important because the base I'm building lives in a world where something is going on. It's not just a base. It's not like I'm just playing with blocks in my room. Like, I'm actually building something in a world where things matter. Let's see here. I'm so sorry I'm falling so behind in the chat here, but Zaluk Blizzard asks if I'm playing with any fun mods. No, I tend to just not play with mods very much, mostly just because as a game developer, usually what I want to see is the game that was made by other game developers, what choices they made, and it's kind of what I'm up against when it comes to the standards that people expect from games. And so I usually am just much more interested in seeing the boundaries of what the developer made, and I'm less interested in seeing what the game has been customized into. Occasionally, I sometimes will check out one or two here and there, or I'll just listen about them, find out what people are doing, because it's interesting to know about it. But in terms of like what I play, I usually like to judge myself and my own work against work of other professional game developers. And also, just mods are scary because there's less quality control over them than professional game products, and I'm just always worried I'm going to break something and I'm going to have a terrible time, and so that's another reason why I sometimes avoid them. So Renthcord says, here's a serious question for you. He asked this a long time ago, so maybe I've already answered this. Let's see. Do you think it's a failure on the part of the game if a player plays a lot of it and enjoys it but doesn't necessarily finish it? Obviously, like you're saying, you do with these games, but also like State of Decay 2, players who've never gotten legacy boots. I'm guessing you're going to say no, but are there games or types of games where the answer would be yes? Okay, yeah, your question is more interesting than what I've covered so far. So yeah, you accurately guessed that. By the way, I'm not talking to this guy because he's going to talk a bunch. You accurately guessed what my answer was going to be, which was, yeah, no, it's not a failure. If players don't finish a game but they have a great time, that's important. And actually, one of the debates you sometimes get into on game development teams is, where to spend your resources, and specifically, like you always spend more resources on the beginning of the game than the rest of the game. And a big part of that is because more players are going to see the beginning of the game, and the beginning of the game often determines whether or not players are going to ever see the end of the game. If you mess up the beginning, you might have a great ending, but players will never get there unless they've seen unless they liked the beginning. I'm just going to collect items around here so I can mulch them into garbage later. I just lost track of what I was saying. But sometimes people would say, oh yeah, let's just put almost no time into the ending, because nobody's going to get there anyway. Or a very small percentage of players are going to get there. And I think that's a mistake, and I've always argued against it. And a big reason is because a lot of the time, like I was saying about the story a second earlier, if you are aware that the game does not have a story, it makes the world seem smaller. And if you're aware that the game has a bad story, it makes playing the early game feel not worthwhile. There's a lot of reasons why. Oh, an ammo box, nice. If I hear that a game has got a bad ending, I won't play the beginning, or if it seems like the story of the game is sort of flagging towards the middle, it'll actually kind of mess up my memory of the beginning. Like if the beginning of the game was really cool, but then the story kind of went south, I won't remember the beginning as well either. It's not like even though that was a good experience at the outset, it gets tarnished in my memory. And so there's lots of reasons why stuff that the player doesn't play is actually still really important to their experience. The fact that I'm aware that a given game has got a lot of stuff in it that I didn't play makes the game cooler to me, even if I never play it. The fact that I know that Skyrim had this whole, story that people put a lot of time into. I'm just gushing blood. And the fact that I could sort of see evidence of that story around me, even though I wasn't playing through it, the fact that I could see evidence of that story around me meant, the gameplay that I was doing while ignoring the story was better gameplay. I had a better time exploring that world because that was there. And so Ranthcord's question about is it a bad thing if players don't finish a game? I don't think it's a bad thing if players don't finish a game. I think it's a bad thing if developers don't finish a game. It's a bad thing if developers don't put enough time and effort into the ending to make a good ending because they know players aren't going to finish it. I think that's a bad call. I think you need to have an ending that makes... I think what you want players who don't finish the game to regret not finishing the game because their friends tell them the ending is so good. That's the experience you want to create. You don't want players to be relieved they spent so little time in your game because you flubbed the ending. So anyway, that wasn't really the question you asked, Radithcore, but that's sort of what it makes me think of. So I appreciate you letting me sort of deviate a little bit from that. And let's see here. Oh, by the way, a couple people that I haven't talked to before, Dark Cranberry Games, Aussie King, both showed up. Thank you for coming in here. I don't usually play a lot of Fallout 4. I haven't played this game seriously in years, which is why I'm fumbling around and not knowing what I'm doing. Because there's just a lot of, knowledge that you build up in a game. And actually, one of the downsides of Fallout is that they've deliberately gone for this 80s era aesthetic when it comes to your your UI, which is kind of neat. It sort of, on a tactile level, it contributes to the positive experience you're having with the game. But it also has its downsides because they're taking on so many limits to their UX by basing it on older user experiences. They actually are having a harder time doing some of the basic stuff that would normally remind me how to play a game. One of the big problems you're trying to solve when you're coming up with the user experience for a game is trying to build it in such a way that a player, it's not just the player who's just gone through the tutorial and is playing through the game every step of the way and is like accumulating this knowledge of how to play and this like muscle memory of how to play. Your game can't just be for them. It also has to be for the person who plays once a week and forgets everything in between. Or the player who puts the game down and comes back 3 months later and wants to finish it now that that busy time in their life is over, or something. You want, your game to work for a lot of different people, and that includes people for whom, like trying to remember, for instance, how do I break down junk items into resources, or do I even need to? I know I had to in Fallout 76, which is my most recent memory of Fallout. Did I have to do it in Fallout 4, or did I not have to do it? I'm genuinely not sure. I don't know how it works. But that's interesting to me. Like I mean, we don't have to solve that problem here. I'm not planning on playing a bunch of Fallout 4 right now. But it does, this is a thing that I need to think about, because while I'm working on my project, I need to think about the player who, some of our players with State of Decay 2, they just played continuously. Some players play it for a little bit at each update, and then they stop and they go play something else. And if our game doesn't have controls that are either very intuitive and very similar to other games, so that it's easy to intuit them back when you come back into the game, you're like, oh, right, this does this, that does that, right, obviously. Or make them really just on their face obvious. You walk up to something and it prompts you with exactly what to do. That's another way you can solve it. Another way is just to make sure there's really good tutorial reminders, like Spider-Man, for instance. It can't prompt every single thing that you can do, but it's got an entire menu devoted to showing you every single move you have and outlining how you do it, so you can remind yourself when you come back. You have to think about that stuff, because you don't want to limit your fan base to just the people who play it continuously, because that is a much smaller group than people who have lives outside of your game or other games that they want to play. By the way, that sounded insulting. I'm not saying that people who devote themselves to a single game don't have lives. I apologize. That was a misstatement and it was wrong. Right now, I'm doing almost nothing but playing Project Zomboid. I still consider myself to have a life, so it's fine. What I was trying to say was, a lot of people cultivate a wide variety of different activities in their lives and different focuses. And you don't want your game to just be about the people who are so dead center in your audience that when they get your game, it's the only thing they want to play, and they forget everything else because your game is so perfect for them. That is always going to be a very small subset of your audience. The rest of your audience is going to be people with diverse tastes, diverse, interests, or people who are just, your game is not the perfect game for them. They like it, but there's another game that's the perfect game for them that they're going to keep going back to. And they're going to, go to your game because it's interesting, it's different, they want to change the pace, but they're not going to be playing it all the damn time. And so you have to make your game discoverable to those players. Let's see here. So Ozzy King says he hasn't played Fallout 4 in years either, but he's downloading it again. So I mean, I'm really glad actually that Director Cosmic encouraged me to download this, because not only did I download this, I also downloaded 76, which I've started occasionally playing with one of my friends online. I had never actually played it in multiplayer. I'd only played it in single player, and so it's interesting to sort of get in there, see his base, show off my base, and none of that. I wouldn't have really been doing any of that stuff if Director Cosmic hadn't encouraged me to re-download Fallout 4. So I appreciate it. Yeah, Aussie King, I'm so sorry that I fell behind in the comments. Sometimes I get just really into a rant that I'm having, and I lose track, and it's tough. One of the reasons why I try to stream like this is to try to get better at that, and obviously I've been very slow at improving in this particular regard. For those of you who watch me a lot, I am not getting much better at keeping up with the chat, but I'd like to get better at it, and so that's why I keep streaming. Let's see here. So Noanmai is guessing that I'm playing this on PC because the Xbox is so slow. I'm playing this on an Xbox Series X, actually. So that's not the platform it originally came out on. I believe that Fallout 4 was an Xbox One game. And so, yeah, so we've jumped up a generation, so that's why it's running so smoothly, I'd imagine. When I talked about games having bad endings, Bardic Angel cited Mass Effect 3, which absolutely, I mean, the problem with Mass Effect 3, it wasn't just like the ending was like bad in some kind of generic way, like any story can have a bad ending. It's like Mass Effect, the thing that was miraculous about Mass Effect was that they were maintaining all of these choices that you made from the first game. And I was making choices about the fate of my characters, the fate of the galaxy. You know, I was like making decisions about what was going to happen with the Geth, what was going to happen with the Krogan, what was, you know, like all of these like major, wow, hello. Major, momentous decisions. What? That was 95%, you jerk. There you go. Anyway, these major decisions, and the thing that I felt like I was driving towards was all of these decisions are going to pay off. The ending is going to be about seeing what happened as a result of all my decisions. That's actually one of the reasons I got into the Fallout series originally, was because when I played Fallout 1, one of my favorite moments in Fallout 1 was at the very end of the game. I had made choices throughout the entire game in different settings and different factions, which were all kind of separate from each other. And then at the end, they did a final wrap-up of, you know, this is what happened to Killian Darkwater. This is what happened to whatever, to the Master. This is what happened to so-and-so. The NCR showed up because of this or whatever. You know, I don't know. Like they had all these results from my actions, and I felt like, oh wow, this entire time my actions really mattered because there was a wrap up at the end that told me that they mattered. And so Mass Effect, what I was looking forward to was the wrap up at the end of Mass Effect 3 that was going to tell me what happened to the Krogan, what happened to the Geth, what happened to whatever, you know, what happened to the fleet that Tally's from. I've forgotten things from Mass Effect, but what we got instead was an ending that pushed the reset button on the universe and invalidated a lot of those choices. And I was just crushed because I had been building up what the ending of this game was going to be like, and they just did a different ending, which, you know, is their right. It's always your right to end your story however you like. But at the same time, I was just like, I felt like the game was building towards a certain kind of ending, and I got a different kind of ending. And that was disappointing. Sorry, I was picking up all this meat. And I thought I heard something, and so I was worried that there was another bug that I needed to fight, but I don't see it here. I see a suitcase. Oh, but it's locked, and I don't have any bobby pins. Anyway, yeah, so that's why that ending didn't work for me. And so that was like, but that was just because we're talking about Fallout. That's one of the reasons why I loved the Fallout series originally. And Bethesda has not leaned as hard into that. They basically used the Fallout IP to make their own style of game, which they are totally allowed to do, and I don't mind it. You know, like I don't mind that Fallout 3 is very different from Fallout 2. You know, Fallout 1 and 2 were amazing, and they were amazing at being a certain kind of thing. And there are other games that have followed on in their footsteps and been amazing in the same way. And Fallout 3 and 4 did not have to be that for me. So it's totally fine. Like, I'm not one of the people who's, like, angry that Bethesda, you know, ruined the franchise or something like that by making Bethesda games. Like, Bethesda gets to make Bethesda games. It's fine. I like Bethesda games. They're cool. So, anyway. Okay, I'm starting to maybe catch up. I think people are talking less because they know I don't answer them anyway. Noanmai says, I started this and then I got killed by a wasp or something, then I rage quit. That is a problem in some of these games. So actually, more so, I think that Obsidian's Fallout game might have done this a little bit more, in that there were certain places where there were just enemies that were just beyond you, and it was your job to recognize that and get the crap out of there before you got killed. Bethesda does that less. They do tend to sort of try to auto balance things and make it so that wherever you go, you're not making a horrendous decision, which has its upsides and its downsides, which I think other people smarter than me have talked about. But still, I mean, this is the kind of game where, like, you know, they do try to let anything happen. You can run in any direction get into any kind of weird trouble, and it's just up to you, which is, it's got its positives and its negatives. Looks like no one I ran into one of the negatives. Let's see here. Aussie King asks if I know how to do the dupe glitch. I don't. And if I did, I wouldn't use it. Because like, I just tend to really like playing systems the way they're intended to be played. Because I feel like I learn more that way. You know, I learn more about game balance. I learn more about, you know, stuff like that if I play them the way they're meant to be played. So if I find out about a dupe glitch, I definitely want to avoid it. Because I don't want to mess up my own experience. And I don't want to mess up what I could learn from it. So Ranith Cord says there actually are wrap-ups at the end of Fallout 4, if you remember this correctly. That's good. Like, I never played to the end of Fallout 4, so I don't remember. Or were you saying Mass Effect 3? Because I remember when I first played through Mass Effect 3, there was sort of there was an ending, but it didn't. Most of the things that I cared about had been invalidated, so there wasn't a wrap-up to do. I believe they might, in like they might have done a later update where they updated the ending and added more satisfying payoffs to some of those things. I heard that, but I had already lost interest in the game, and it's been, I mean, trying to go back and do it again would just be, I mean, those games are long. They're long, and if I can't guarantee myself that I'll definitely have a better time at the end, playing through it again to remind myself what I was doing would just be a nightmare. Okay, so yeah, Airy Twitch says there are various endings in Fallout 4 that they played through multiple factions. So, okay, good. That's really good to hear, actually. That sounds like the kind of thing that I really like. This is my house, and it's messed up. The kind of thing that I like about this kind of game, it like the storytelling, the narrative side of it anyway, is here, which is good. So that's heartening. If I ever do come back and decide I want to play all the way through Fallout 4, that gives me hope that I'll actually probably get something I like out of it, because, you know, there are games with linear stories that I love. Like, for instance, The Last of Us and The Last of Us 2. Absolutely love those games. And a big part of it was the very specific story they decided to tell. I often disagreed with the premise of the story, wanted it to end differently, would have ended it differently if it was my story, or would have had it, like, proceed differently if it was my story. But something doesn't have to go exactly my way for it to still be good and for me to still appreciate it and enjoy it. And so I really love those games, even though I'm like, come on, characters, stop it. You know, a lot of the time. Like, I still get it, you know? But a lot of the time, like, when I'm coming to a game like a Bethesda game, and what I want is to have this, like, very creatively invested experience in the game, having a story that responds to me and actually, like, is where I can pursue the threads that I want to pursue, ignore the ones I want to ignore, make the choices that lead to the outcomes that I want, that kind of storytelling fits with this experience really, really well, and so I always appreciate it better. So Cosmic says there's the Brotherhood of Steel, there's the Synths, there's the Railroad, and there's one other. Oh, yeah, so there's, like, basically different factions you can align yourself with that all lead to different endings. Like I've forgotten the story of Fallout 4. And so I know that there's some kind of core conflict going on the map between different factions, and that I imagine you're probably trying to affect the overall outcome for everyone by choosing which factions you're working with. That's all I remember. So, there you go. So, Airy Twitch, he says you can choose to align with one or more factions. Is it that you choose a faction that wins? Or is it more like they're all pursuing their own ends in parallel to each other and you can work for any and all of them? Or, like, are there some that are opposed to each other and some that can coexist happily, and you just sort of decide which combination of them you're going to work with? Minutemen. Thank you, Koger69. Remember the name of the other faction. Thank you, Koger. Oh, yeah, so Radithcore points out that New Vegas definitely had alternate endings and wrap-ups. And yeah, so that is not Bethesda, right? Like, they're using Bethesda's technology. They're being published by Bethesda. But that was Obsidian. And Obsidian is actually made up of a lot of people who came from the studio that originally made the Fallout games. I'm sure that there's been enough turnover by now, or enough growth by now, that's not the majority of the studio anymore, because I think, they're working on multiple games simultaneously. They've got a lot of people working for them. It's not just, Black Isle refugees. Like, but I think it was, like, I think originally they were made up of a lot of people from Black Isle. And so they brought with them, I think, some of the sort of the way that Bethesda has got a philosophy for how they build games. I think they brought with them a lot of the Black Isle philosophy for how you build games. And so a lot of the stuff that I would have liked about the original Fallout games would also have remained true for, for not just Fallout New Vegas, but also other games by Obsidian. If I had the patience to play isometric RPGs, which I keep trying to do, and only rarely does one actually manage to capture my attention, and it's not because of anything the developers have done wrong or anything wrong with the genre. For some reason, I struggle to maintain my focus on an isometric RPG. Disco Elysium is the only one I've been able to play recently and actually stay into. But I'm assuming that Obsidian is doing similar things with their isometric RPGs. That's what I would go to them for, is an assumption that there is some kind of like creatively invested, branching kind of storyline that you're telling. Okay, so Koger says that the Minutemen are kind of the backup in case you anger all the other factions. Yeah, so Airy Twitch says that, yeah, some of these factions can coexist, but Cosmic points out that the Minutemen are the ones that, like, you don't have to choose them. They kind of adopt you automatically, and they're just like, yeah, okay, you can work for us, and there's nothing you can do to piss them off, but the rest of them you can. That actually makes a lot of sense, right? So, like, your journey through the game will always have some kind of backbone, some kind of structure that you can't completely annihilate. But because part of making an open world game like this is trying to make it so there's always something that the player can do. They can't just screw themselves so much that they have to restart. Because if you have to restart a game of this scale and ambition, it's just intimidating, and usually you'll just drop it. Unless you're doing something that's deliberately like a roguelike. But even like, say, Project Zomboid, for instance, life is cheap in that game, but they deliberately set it up so that the world persists when your character dies. So even though you lose a lot when you lose a character, you don't lose everything, because having to start over is a nightmare. So I think, yeah, the Minutemen are there as like a backstop. So that even if you decide to just be the jerk in every single situation, or the good guy in case of an evil faction, and just piss everyone else off, you don't lose your reason to continue playing. So, Cumsbolt says that this guy is like Guybrush Threepwood from Curse of Monkey Island. Everything fits inside the pockets, no matter the size. So Guybrush Threepwood, I think there was a joke in the original Monkey Island where he pulled something enormous out of his pants, and they actually did like a special animation. So I think it was like something like a banana picking device or something like that. He like opened up his pants like out at arm's length, and they pulled out this enormous thing, and then closed his pants again. So yeah, that's always been an ongoing joke in Monkey Island. This character just has an endless inventory that he keeps on him. Koger69 says, yeah, you can't kill Preston Garvey. You can kill... Cosmic points out that if you're a psycho, you can kill all kinds of other people. But Koger says you can't kill Preston Garvey, who's the leader of the Minutemen. Which, I know that some players, because the Minutemen is the one consistent faction, and because, there's a little bit of a fear, and I've experienced this too. There's a fear when you're making an open world game that players will get lost, and they're not going to be sure what to do and where to go. And so you want to give them something they can hold on to at all times. And I think that the Bethesda team decided to make Preston Garvey that thing, where it's like he is the one thing that will always give you direction. Like, if you don't know what to do, Preston Garvey's got something for you to do. And that can be great, except, and we have this problem in State of Decay 2 as well. If your mission system advertises missions to the player and seems to treat the missions like they're important, you can get into a situation where you've got a bunch of non-essential missions coming at the player at all times, and so you intended them to be non-essential, but because they're being advertised to the player in their UI, the player feels like they're essential, and the player feels overwhelmed by the sheer amount of stuff that they're being asked to do. And so that's one thing that would happen with Preston Garvey. Some people, he was always a valid source of missions and things that you could do and direction, but that meant he was always advertising missions to you. And so people were just like so tired of him. And there's a lot of people out there who wanted to kill Preston Garvey, and who maybe, I'm sure there's a mod out there that lets you kill Preston Garvey because he was so annoying to them, advertising all their missions. We similarly had people who were really mad at Lily in State of Decay 1 because she was the voice of a lot of the missions, and our mission system advertised missions to you. In State of Decay 2, we kind of made the same mistake, having things advertise missions to you, having a single mission list where everything from all over the game was collected, so you always felt like you had this checklist, which having a checklist, it helps you, feel like you've got direction, but it doesn't, but it can also make you feel like, ugh, I have a checklist. In real life, I have a checklist, and it's long, and I'm never finishing it, and it's annoying, and when I'm playing a game, sometimes I don't want a checklist. Sometimes what do you actually want? And this is something that I've been thinking would have been a better choice in State of Decay 2. Sometimes what you want is not a quest list like this, where this can get full of a ton of quests. Maybe sometimes what you want is a map where you can just see, oh, there's some people over here, and if I zoom in on them, I can see that they've got problems, and there's things that I can do over there. Or there's a place over here I haven't explored yet. There might be resources over here. I could go over and do that. Like a map where you're not being told urgently you must do this now, but look, there's possibilities, and then letting the player come up with their own decisions about how they're going to pursue those possibilities. I think that works a lot better for this kind of game, and for a player like me, or like a lot of you out there, who get annoyed at things like Preston Garvey constantly putting quests on your quest list. Raneth Cord says, I wish Bethesda would label infinite missions as such, at least. I did so many extra Preston missions in Fallout 4 and book gathering missions in Skyrim since I thought maybe I'll get a special reward after doing several more of these. And then it wasn't there. Yeah, I think that's a really good move, actually. That's one thing. When we tried to hack something like that into State of Decay 2 with the Juggernaut Edition, we added the story mission, like sort of the different skin on the main missions of the game. We were trying to set it up so that you can understand the things that don't have this skin are all non-essential, and you can decide which ones to ignore. I don't think that message really comes across. I think we would need to reconceive our UX from the ground up to really make that work. But that's kind of what we were trying to do. It sort of create like a hierarchy of missions. You know which ones are actually important and which ones are ones that you can just take or leave. Let's see here. Cosmic says 9.9 thousand more channel points until I can request another game. I hope you're not disappointed by how I've been playing this game, Cosmic, because I've not been playing it. I mean, I've basically, you know what? We should have a conversation with this guy, at least so we can see the conversation system. Because I haven't really been demoing to Fallout 4. I've just been ranting about Fallout 4. But that's kind of, I mean, when you ask for a really old game like this that I haven't played very much of in a long time, that's kind of what you're going to be able to get from me, is just me talking about it all day. Hey, it's Codsworth. Oh, I've got my gun out? Is that why I can't talk to him? What's going on? Why can't I talk to him? Is there a bug?
Hey, Codsworth.
My character just said, hey, Codsworth. What's going on? If I sit here and I don't talk to Codsworth for a long time, does he break?
Codsworth.
Oh, that's so weird. Does anyone know what's going on here? Is it? I thought there was a whole conversation I'm supposed to have with this dude. Does it only happen in the day? Does it? I'm surprised there's no explanation for why this isn't working. That makes me feel like it's a bug. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to quick save. I'm going to quit. I'm going to come back in and see if I broke Codsworth. Oh, wait a minute. Airy Twitch just told me what I'm probably doing wrong. Or am I? Oh, yeah, no. Okay. I thought for a second, Airy Twitch was suggesting that maybe it's because I rebound the Y button. That maybe that was breaking. I was hitting the wrong button. But no. If I hit the A button, which is normally what it is for most people, I jump. If I hit the Y button...
Codsworth.
My character just says Codsworth, but nothing happens. There's a whole conversation line with this character. I remember it. This is the robot that worked in my house, and he's been staying around waiting for me the entire time I've been asleep. And he's broken down and he's weird. Oh. So Koger says, do you have the Tunnel Snakes Creation Club items installed? I believe those break Codsworth. I don't think so. If not, is that a mod or is that a DLC? If it's a DLC, I could see maybe that got packaged with with the game. Because basically, I originally played this game on PC, and then I got it on Game Pass just now to play it here. If that's a DLC that would have been packaged with the Game Pass version, maybe I did get it. I don't know. That's really hilarious. Well, Cosmic, this might be what we're going to get out of this today, is a long, ranty conversation with me about Fallout 4 and then Fallout 4 breaking. Oh, okay, yeah. So Koger says that that there's apparently it's part of the it's mods. It's part of the mod system that they support. And so no, I have not consciously installed any mods to the game. So I guess we found a glitch. That's great. It's wonderful. I love it. Random Court says you can't properly show off a Bethesda game without showing a glitch. So yeah, and that's probably, maybe that's the last thing I'll talk about. And Cosmic says you've been lollygagging too long. Probably that's true. I think if I had walked up and talked to him right as soon as I got there, which is what most players do. It's what I did when I first played the game. He talks to you just fine, and everything's fine. It's because I just sat around talking to you all this whole time instead of playing the game that this happened. But whatever. But yeah, so Bethesda gets a bad rap for having a lot of bugs in their game, and the problem is, like, I don't think it's possible to make a Bethesda style game without a lot of things potentially going wrong, because the sheer scale of it and the sheer number of different things that that you could do differently. Like, every single player is going to do things in different orders, bring different things into different scenarios, like bring different companions onto different quests. They could try to go anywhere and do anything, get themselves into physical positions that are hard to get out of. Like, there's just so many things. Like, you try to make something simple in a game like this, and there's so many things that can break it. It's impossible to stay on top of it all. Now, you can always do a better or worse job of managing that chaos, and I'm sure that Bethesda puts a lot of thought into how are we going to strategically manage the chaos of a game this scale. And they probably, with different games they put out, they've probably succeeded to different degrees, but this is a hard problem. And I think that, when people complain about Bethesda games being buggy, I mean, please have some compassion for this team. They decided to build something crazy that no one else is building. And you get to have that thing because they decided to do that and to take that risk. But also, because they decided to do that and take that risk, they've ended up with a game that's going to have some chaos in it. But I personally, again, I want them to do the best job they possibly can of staying on top of the chaos. That is important, and it's part of their responsibility. It's part of my responsibility as a State of Decay developer to also do the best with the chaos I can with the chaos in my games. But also, we will not succeed 100%, and Bethesda will not succeed 100%. And all we can do is sort of get as close as we can to the goal, and hope that the fact that we're making something weird that no one else is making helps to justify the chaos. Because the reason why there's a lot of simpler, more linear games that don't have the level of chaos, because they're intrinsically easier to keep track of and to test and to thoroughly test and fix all of the problems. So I'm always very forgiving of Bethesda games for their glitchiness, because I mean, I get to play a Bethesda game, so the alternate universe where they decided to make a different kind of game to avoid that, I prefer this one. I like this universe where I get to have these Bethesda games. Okay, so Airy Twitch says that they actually looked it up on Reddit, and you can just skip this and head to the next town if you want to. Is this... I'm trying to remember. Is Preston Garvey here too, or is he in a different place? I had it in my head that he might be in this town, in this neighborhood, but I could also be misremembering that. I can, one thing I could show you is, I think it's in this direction, where I originally settled down the first time that I played Fallout 4. I think it was across this bridge. Yes, it was. By the way, my health is really low. Do I have any food? Let's look for my food real quick. Nope, that's the wrong button. Oh, right. Left and right are how you navigate. Oh, yeah, of course. I made grilled radroach. Of course I have food. Do I eat it? Yes. Okay, gonna eat that. I'm gonna eat it twice. And then they both take time to fill up my health, which means I can't just... Oh, mongrel dog meat, nice. And a tire iron, which means I can't just... Ooh, shotgun shell, double barrel shotgun. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to take your clothes, sir. That was kind of disrespectful. So actually, let's see here. I've got... Yeah, moving left and right on between the tabs of a menu is never intuitive to me. I always expect it to be a shoulder button. So you have the tabs at the top that you use the triggers to move back and forth on. But you actually, because all the lists have only a single column, you move left and right on the D-pad to switch between these ones. And I always get that wrong. I always start hitting the wrong buttons in those cases. So let's... I want to stick that shotgun right there. And I guess I'll stick the tire iron somewhere too in case I need a melee weapon. So now I can switch to a shotgun if I want to. However, I don't have a lot of ammo for that shotgun, so I'm going to hold on to that for later. But this, Red Rocket, this was my... I mean, it's the first base in the game, right? It's the most obvious base in the game. So I feel a little bit basic. Oh, hey! Dog meat!
Hey, boy. What are you doing out here all by yourself?
Let's go.
You wanna come with me, pal?
Oh, you can pet the dog.
Okay, then. Let's stick together.
Yes! Oh, I can issue commands? Come here. Come here. Dog. Hey. Hey, dog. Dog! Oh, this is just like having a dog, isn't it? Hey, oh. Inspect that stool for me, dog. And then B to stop issuing commands. Okay, cool. I've forgotten about that. Anyway, I'm pretty basic for liking this place. But the thing I liked about it was I went back here and I built like in this back area here in my original game, I built like a 2 or 3 story cabin. And then I very carefully, it's very difficult to be building around existing geometry because they've got this sort of like these boxy or tubular prefabs that you can build your own base out of from scratch, and there's several places where they basically just have open land where you can just build whatever you want. But my favorite bases are, you know, as a State of Decay 2 developer, you wouldn't be surprised to know my favorite bases are ones that are set in existing structures because it's just more interesting. It gives it a oh, dog found an enemy. What enemy? Oh, it's probably inside the place. But yeah, I like... Oh, gosh. Hello. Got it! And I leveled up. Wait, more mole rats. Where are they? There he is. Oh, nope. Let's... Oh, it went underground. No! Abort! Abort! Ah! Okay, okay. Okay. Let's... hit that one, hit that one, and then I think I need to recharge my action points. Oh, don't kill dog meat! Give me my action points back! Yeah, get him, dog meat! So anyway, like, part of what I think is... What the? There's more! Part of what I think is particularly fun about the post-apocalyptic setting as a general rule, this applies to State of Decay, it applies to a lot of things, is that sense of adapting the old world in new ways. Taking, you know, a gas station, turning it into a home, for instance, is one example. But, you know, like taking something that was not built to be a fort and making it into a fort. Taking something that was not meant to be a weapon and modifying it so that it's a really good, dedicated weapon, but still carries the history of what it originally was. Like that, I think that's the post-apocalyptic aesthetic is largely about that. And so I really liked the idea of not just sort of settling here and like using the crafting system to just build pieces of furniture that I needed, tools that I needed, because, you know, they come with, you know, there's a weapons workbench over here, there's a power armor station over here. And so, yeah, I I can mess with my tire iron. Can I upgrade it? How can I upgrade? Oh, I can make it a bladed tire iron. See? So that's the thing where, Fallout 4 really got what is cool about post-apocalypse, because you take a normal thing, which functions perfectly well as a weapon, and then you augment it to make it into something else, but it still also retains what it already is. And that's there's something just weird. It tickles my brain, that aesthetic. I just love that. And so I really liked, sort of building a cabin, like 2 or 3 story cabin back here, building a bridge to the roof, and then I built a bunch of stuff on the roof of this. And so I had this like very secure. I put a bunch of turrets around the edges and stuff. I had just a really secure place to live up on the roof of this place, because I had sort of taken the strength of this place, the fact that it has this big flat roof, and then turned it into something that I needed in the apocalypse. Hikari Kishi says, that looked like dinner. Oh, that's true, actually. We do have a cooking station. What do we have here? What can we roast? We got some mole rat. Okay, we got some rad roach still, because we killed a few more of those. I mean, the fact that the dog is running around in the background is freaking me out. Mole rat chunks. Yes. And mutt chops. By the way, I love the clever names of some of this stuff. Instead of mutton chops, you have mutt chops. I like they called it mongrel dog meat, so that I can be sure to recognize that I'm not actually murdering dog meat himself. So Hikari Kishi says, when you get to the castle, the base construction shines. I'm trying to remember what was the castle. Was that? I know that there's like a big open arena, or like it was a drive-through theater. Was that what the castle was? I'm trying to remember. There's a drive-through theater. A drive-through? You can't drive through a theater. A drive-in theater. You drive into the theater and then stay there. You don't drive through the theater. There's a drive-in theater where I think they had a big open space, and I used that to build like a weird metal base in my first game. I thought that was pretty cool. Is that the castle, or is that something else? Because if that's the castle, I think we might have accidentally made a reference to it in State of Decay 2 with Knight's Family Drive-In. Okay, so the castle is different. The castle is an old world fort. Okay, cool. I think the reason why I thought that was because we have a castle themed base in State of Decay 2, and so I was like, oh no, wait, did we just do something weird? But no, we didn't. Okay, great, awesome. I'm gonna take a toaster. I'll pick up a telephone. I just vacuum up. I mean, this is a problem in Skyrim. The fact that you just want to vacuum up every single thing that you see, because anything that's not nailed down, you want to pick it up. At least in Fallout 4, you can take it all home, you can mulch it, and you can just transfer stuff into this. So actually, does anyone remember? Okay, so I just hit the wrong button. Dang it. Come on. Okay, back out. So he's got to finish his animation before he can back out. Of course he does. I'm going to hit the transfer button. I'm going to store all junk in here. So I've just gotten all the junk out of my inventory, which is good. So the question is, is there some extra step that I need to take to turn these into their basic components? Or do they just get used as needed by the workshop? Starlight Drive-In. Ray just reminded me that it's called the Starlight Drive-In. So Coker says you can just store them, and then Airy Twitch confirms that they're used as needed. Okay, cool. So yeah, I think it's because I played Fallout 76 more recently, where I think you do actually have to manually mulch everything into its resources. That I had the impression that I needed to do that here, but I think that's that makes perfect sense. Does it somewhere tell me how much of each thing I have? I guess if I'm looking at a recipe, it'll tell me how much of something I have. Like for instance, if I want to build a long barrel, it tells me, okay, I think it's telling me I have 5 adhesive and it only requires 2. I have 39 steel and it only requires 3. So I could lengthen the barrel of this. That'll increase its range. It'll increase its weight, which makes it worse. Increase its value. It doesn't change the damage. If I wanted to change the damage, I think that's the receiver that I would mess with, right? There we go. Oh, wait. Automatic receiver. Oh, that's the fire rate. Okay, yeah. So the standard receiver is 18. Light frame is 17. Heavy frame is 19. Calibrated is more about accuracy. Hardened does more damage. These all look the same. But yeah, so Hikaru Kishi says the gun modding in this game may be why so many people ask for it in State of Decay 2. LOL. Yeah, I mean, this one or also the Ghost Recon series, they got so serious about their gun modding that they sort of set this standard where, like, anytime you suggest there might be any level of gun modding in your game, people look at Ghost Recon and they're like, oh, you're going to give us this? You're going to give us this, aren't you? And I'm like, well, wait, hold on. No, we can't do what Ghost Recon did. Our game isn't entirely about your loadout. And they're like, no, but that's what gun modding is. You have not done proper gun modding until you have given us Ghost Recon. And I'm like, that's not really true. Because sometimes, some games really sort of benefit a lot from having a really complicated modding system, a complicated crafting system. And some games do not get better as a result of that. Some games, if you're doing a lot of different complicated things at once with your game, it is... Oh, by the way, the stuff that I stored in that one workshop, is it also stored here? I think it is. In any case, yeah, a lot of you actually do not want to have the fanciest version of something, because the fanciest version will be a distraction. It'll be something that you have to actually players have a certain limited amount of space in their brain to be doing things at once, and when you make your game too complex, sometimes players really want to engage in that level of sort of full brain consumption, but not always. And a lot of times, especially when somebody is new to a game, having the game have so many things that are all extremely detailed and be so overwhelming, it can actually be a really big problem. And that's one of the reasons why, for instance, I originally did not get into Project Zomboid. There was clearly so much in this game going on at once, I couldn't possibly figure it out. And so rather than figure it out, I disengaged. And it wasn't until I had help from a lot of other people that I figured out that I actually could love it if I did the work to build up all of my understanding and knowledge of all the different complicated systems. Koger says, I think State of Decay 2's attachment system works fine for what it is. Anything more would feel too focused, but others may feel differently, of course. Yeah, that's the thing. There are some people who play State of Decay 2 because it is in the zone that they want. And then there are other people who play State of Decay 2 because it's got some things that they want, but it's not perfectly what they want. And those people are often going to be like, can you add this? Can you add that? Because that's what's going to make it the game that we want. And we always are doing this balancing act between giving people things that they ask for, and sometimes deciding, actually, if we give you what you want, the game gets worse and more difficult for someone else. And so we can't make that change for you because it comes at a cost. And we're trying to we've got an entire audience we're trying to entertain. And we can't just make the game for that narrow slice of people. Anyway, I'm getting some messages on my phone that I probably need to catch up on. So let's cut this episode, because how long have I been doing this? It's been over an hour, hasn't it? We've mostly just been talking, and I've been accomplishing very little in the game. But I guess, so this is what you get. If you request an older game that I've already played the heck out of, I'm probably just going to sit and talk to you the entire time. Cosmic, I hope that you found this entertaining and worth all the channel points that you spent on it. And for everyone else, I hope you enjoyed it too. So let's wrap this up with a subscribe button for my YouTube followers later on. My followers don't need to subscribe. They've already subscribed. I don't know what I'm saying anymore.